Welcome to Got Nitro Online how-to video. Today we're introducing the new Nuova Faor SF701 Super Nitro RC 1/5 scale bike. These bikes were just released in 2014. They've made a lot of changes. They're the superior bike on the market. Very well designed, very well balanced. You won't find a better bike to learn on or to drive. You want to go 60-70 miles an hour, take a look at the Nuova Faor SF701. So the first thing we need to do when you receive your new bike, it comes with the hard inserts installed on the front and on the rear of the bike. These are inserts, they're not tires. So the first thing we need to do is remove the front end, and we do that by removing this screw here and this screw here. Unwrap our brake cable and the whole front end assembly will slide off. Here we go. And we'll just set the rear section of the bike aside. Make sure we don't lose our spring and the bolts. And now we have our front wheel assembly off of the bike. Just wrap the cable up a little bit so it stays out of our way. 2 screws you need to do to remove the front wheel. That's this screw here, right in the very bottom. Just going to loosen that up all the way. Then over here, this bottom screw here, we're going to loosen that up all the way. From here, we're just going to take a little punch. Oops, grab the right size here. And just tap on that. You see our axle is coming out the other side. Just pull the axle out all the way and remove the front housing. So now we'll just finish pulling the front axle out all the way. Kind of need to wiggle the wheel a little bit. Set the axle aside. Make sure you pay note to where the spacers go. There's a little spacer that goes in here, inside of the wheel. And then on the left side, you get the bigger spacer. Remove the wheel from the bike. Remember, this spacer goes in the right. This spacer goes in the left. Now we have the tire installed on the one-piece rim. They install very easily. You'll obviously want to remove the yellow insert that comes with the new tire and use the black insert that is already mounted on the rim. And then all I do is to simply put the axle back in and spin it to make sure that it is spinning true. Once you get it spinning true by manipulating the tire on the rim, it's time to put a small bead of CA glue around the very edge of the rim, touching the tire on both sides. We also, like the new product, just 4 tires, made by Much More. It's a CA rubber tire cement. Works real well. You just need a tiny bead around the inside of the rim, just touching the tire and the rim. Okay, so now we have the tire glued on both sides. And see where you just need to put a little CA glue on the inside all the way around. The tires fit perfectly on these rims. So our front now is complete. Now on to the rear. So now we're ready to remove the rear rim and hard tire insert. And to do that, there's 3 screws that you need to loosen. We have 1 screw here on the end of the swing arm on the left hand side, and then on the right hand side we have the same one on the swing arm, and then we have another one here on the brake caliper piece. Both of these are at the back. You'll loosen those and then just take a little punch and gently tap the rear axle all the way through and remove the rear wheel assembly. Once again, don't forget about where the spacers go. You've got 1 spacer here on the left side, and I believe you'll have another spacer in here. I can verify that once we remove the brakes on the back up against the wheel. We have glued the rear tire on the rim, and when you remove the rear rim, you have 1 Allen screw here, another one in the lower brake caliper piece here, and then on the other side here. You loosen those 3 screws and then gently tap the axle and it goes all the way through. To tighten up the chain tension on the new SF701 Nitro, you remove the Allen screw at the back, push the axle part way through, and then adjust the Allen screw in the front. Make sure they're the same distance on both sides. Same thing here again. Remove the Allen screw in the rear, tap the axle partially through so you can get through into the second screw Allen and adjust the tension on the chain that way. So when you install the rear wheel, there is 1 spacer, orange spacer, that goes on the sprocket side, and then you have 3 1mm washers that go on the right side of the bike and go against the bearing housing. Next, we'll be installing the radio gear. So to install the Savox 1250 servos, we recommend removing the new Pico engine, which, take a look at that beauty. They've changed the exhaust port, went to a round exhaust port. It's supposed to increase performance, and they've also changed the carburetor. Here's a look at the inverted clutch. Pico's done a very nice job remodding this engine. So here's the servo setup. Once you remove the engine, which is fairly easy to do, in the drive gear, you'll easily be able to access to put nuts in the back for the servo screws. And that's how everything looks on that angle. Alright, now we're going to go ahead, put the engine back in, install the receiver, and get the servos all set up and configured to run this brand new SF701 Nitro. Alright, so we have the SF701 Nitro, the new bike from Nuova Faor, completed with the servos installed, the receiver, everything set up, battery pack in, everything zip tied. This bike is ready for the track. A couple things I wanted to point out as I noticed as I installed the servos. I removed the engine to do that, and there's basically just two bolts. This one up here, and then this one down here. And then you also need to remove the main drive gear, this gear here, by removing those two screws. Pop the drive gear off, take those two screws out, and then you can get the motor out so you can get in there to access the holes for mounting the servos. One other thing, on the front tank here, there's a threaded little orange spacer piece, but it is threaded, and that's what these screws here screw into. So when you remove the fuel tank, keep an eye open for that little spacer that's threaded in there. You don't want to lose that guy. And then also behind these bolts here, there's one of those aluminum frame spacers. So when you pull that bolt out, the spacer will still be in between the frames, but just make note of it. I pulled them out so I didn't lose them when I was tossing the bike around, getting the servos installed. And here's the other side of the bike here. I really think the bike turned out very well. And then we did put an on and off switch on this for the customer. He was requesting one. So we put the on off switch here just with double back tape. We'll go ahead and turn that on. We're using the Futaba 4LP radio. Very nice radio. With the brake mixing and everything, it worked out very, very well. An easy setup. These Savox servos are beautiful. So there's our throttle setup. And then for the brake, you can see the middle servo and the rear servo are the ones that control the brake. And then for the steering, remember these are the opposite as to what a car is. So when you turn the steering wheel to the right, you want the wheel to go to the left. But that's all set up there. Throttle and brake. The bike was very easy to work on as Nuova Faor bikes go. Didn't really have any difficulty in anything. It's easier than the 509 race. I'm a little concerned of how this will come out with the fairing mounted on it and stuff. That's something that the customer is going to do. That completes our build of the Nuova Faor SF701 Nitro. Thanks for watching.